And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to episode 14 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show, which is absolutely nuts to think about that it's been going 14 episodes already. But we are here. Obviously, Steele back again as my co-host. We got lots to talk about around the NHL tonight. Plenty of things going on, both good and bad. And we'll have our regular segments as well, as the NHL season continues to roll along, and we are really heading into the home stretch here.
Yeah.
Just about the last 6 weeks of the season, and then we'll be going into playoff time, which is coming faster and faster before we even know it. So, Steele, thank you so much for being here again, and ready for a great show tonight, man.
Always ready to talk hockey, especially on this show. I love that we talk about the entire league. I love how that we break down each segment and each little segment we talk about the full entire NHL. And I love doing this show. And, man, I'm doing great, and I'm pumped. I'm ready to go, man. I am wound up.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we begin, I do want to mention our show sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts, and our Steel Flyers sponsor. They do an awesome job, and really so thankful to them for all of their support of us at Steel Flyers, not just this show, but what everyone at Steel Flyers has going on. Whether it's Joe, Perlo, Peyton, Hockey Writers Inc., Steele, all of us very much supported by them. So a huge thank you to them. And then Steele, I know that you had mentioned something that you would like to talk about here, and all you, man.
Okay, thank you very much. I had a friend of mine who does some great work for us. They design some of the logos and do some of the artwork and some of the graphics for Steel Flyers, and recently informed me that a very close friend of theirs had recently passed. Their really good friend suffered a heart attack. He was quite young, in his early 40s, and left behind a family, two daughters and a son, also a wife, and there's a GoFundMe page. He was a pickup hockey player. He was a avid Flyers fan. He would call and talk and analyze every single game with my buddy's husband, and so they're going to have a memorial pickup hockey game on the 25th of April. That whole weekend is going to be a pickup game there for three on three is what they're going to do. He was also a pickup hockey player as well too, so skated and was a forward and played and was also a very avid Flyers fan. And so there is a GoFundMe page, and would really like to just ask for anything that you could do. It's GoFundMe.com/F/relief for the Vince Mac family. They are going to try to now go without their father and husband and try to raise these kids, all of which are all under the age of 15. So just would really appreciate if anybody could hop on over there and donate to somebody who could really use it. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any support for that family would certainly be greatly appreciated at a very difficult time like this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So that brings us now into our top stories as we get into hockey things here. A lot going on around the league. And
wow, you could say that.
Yeah, plenty to talk about here in our top stories segment. So if we want to kick things off, trade deadline is coming up. I know this is your number one story. We are getting close, 10 days away.
Yeah, man, exactly. And certain things are starting to happen, and it's actually kind of ties in with your number one story as well, because certain things have happened where injuries have happened to certain teams, and now has allowed teams now have a injury cap money now that they can suddenly play with, that now makes them into the buyer's market, where a team like, say, Florida might be looking for, that depth forward that they could bring in, or whatever the case is. And the fact that the trade deadline is now just 10 days away, and you're starting to see teams put players on, taxi squads, and you're starting to see teams shuffling things around. And we broke the story, I think it was last week, that the NHL and Canada had relaxed the rules.
Team, yeah.
Yeah. So that if players wanted to be traded, they could, the rules are going to be a little bit different now, so that they won't have to wait nearly as long.
Yeah, 7 days versus 14-day quarantine if you go to Canada.
Which is, I mean, okay, that's like 3 games potentially, but still, that's better than 0. That's at least, getting them in a week, and as compared to 14
that's getting
days.
them a week earlier. Yeah,
exactly. So hey, can't go wrong with that. So I think you're going to see some surprise moves by some teams that you didn't necessarily think were potentially buyers, are now maybe potentially sellers. Or you're going to see some teams that are on the bubble and are going to look at things and go, well, you know what? Maybe we're not going to make the playoffs, and maybe we're just going to stay the way we are, because you know what? We got stuff that we need to take care of for next year. So there's such a mix of what these teams are going to be doing, especially in the next 10 days. Holy moly.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen more moves already. I thought this was going to be a year where teams don't wait right up until the deadline and started making moves earlier. But the only major move that we've seen has been the Eric Staal trade so far, going from Buffalo to Montreal. Brendan Lemieux also got traded a couple days later, but that wasn't nearly as big of a move. That was a fourth line guy.
Right,
so,
and the Dubois line was like way
earlier
in
the season. Yeah, we haven't had a lot going on trade wise yet, and I thought this might be the year where they do it a little bit earlier, but we're down to 10 days till the deadline now, and it doesn't seem like it. I do think things are really going to pick up over the next 3 to 4 days, though.
Well, see, that's going to be that's the ticket right there, and that's why this was my number one story, because if you factor in the quarantine time, really the trade deadline is in 3 days.
Yeah, for the Canadian teams at least.
Right. Yeah. Okay, because if you really want to have anything, if you want to do something, I'm assuming. I mean, if I was a general manager and I was going to make a trade and I was in Canada and I was going to try to bring a player in that's not from Canada, that would be the one thing that I would do for sure, is to pull that trigger these couple of days early.
Yeah.
So you could get that time to, so that by the time the trade deadline rolls around, you can be like, all right, now it's official, and you've waited the, time allotment or whatever, and you're good to go.
Yeah. No, I think, definitely if I'm a Canadian GM, I'm trying to make a move now as opposed to waiting till actual deadline day, because these guys aren't going to have a lot of games with their new teams anyway. These guys that get traded at the deadline this year because of the shortened season and because the deadline being so late, by the time they actually get to their new teams, they're going to be playing less than 20 games before the playoffs. And then if you have to factor in a guy going to a Canadian team and they have to wait 7 days, that's at least 3, if not 4 games.
Exactly.
I mean, you're looking at 12 to 15 games with your new team, and that's it, and then you're going into the playoffs with them. If you're a Canadian team, you need to make moves sooner rather than later, whereas if you're a U.S. team, probably not as much.
Right. Or if you're going to be a Canadian team and you're going to trade with another Canadian team.
Yeah, that's not as
Right. Or if you're a North American team and you're gonna trade to North American, then yeah,
those can still happen deadline day for sure.
Right, and I think there are gonna be something. I think we are gonna see. And I think we're actually gonna see some things earlier because of that reason, because of the trade deadline being so close, and then with the quarantine time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that with the lack of games that these guys are going to have with their new teams, it's going to be beneficial to make the trade sooner rather than later. And get it done as soon as possible, because even, if you wait right till deadline day, you're into mid-April at that point. You're going to have a month with your new team. You're going to play 12, 15 games with the new team, and then you're going to be into the playoffs. And that's not a lot of time to get accustomed to a new coach, a new system, new line mates. We see that even in a normal season, we see the adjustment period for the players that are traded at the deadline, and the fact that they generally don't really get going in the regular season with their new teams. Their numbers always significantly drop off because they have to relearn everything, and they're coming into a new environment that they're not comfortable in yet, and it's not until the playoffs that they start having an impact, and some of them never have an impact. So many deadline deals end up not helping the teams that made them.
It depends.
Well, but every year there's tons that do absolutely nothing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the team's still out in the first round, and it didn't matter, and you just gave up an asset for nothing. I remember Nashville.
Yeah, because most of the time those players end up being rentals anyway.
Yeah,
and they end
the
up
rental deals. I mean, if you don't go anywhere in the playoffs, that was a complete waste of. I mean, I guess not, because you were at least going for it, but it ends up not working out. That happens a lot to begin with. Never mind now with how few games they're going to have with these new teams.
Okay, all right. I mean, but you have to balance that out. Are you going to go for it and try to do it, or are you going to be like, well, we got some stuff we got to do next year. Maybe we should. You know what I mean? I'm just playing the advocate here.
There are going to be some teams that I think just completely hold pat at the deadline and don't do anything.
Oh yeah. I agree. Even teams that maybe might not make some deals during the season or by the trade deadline, but might do them, after.
Yeah, after the season, once you get towards the draft and things like that. Now, I don't know how active of a deadline this is going to be. It's going to be interesting. It's a weird year this year with so many different factors going into it.
I know.
I don't know if there's going to be this mass rush to try and boost your team, or if teams are going to say flat cap. We've got RFAs next year we need to sign. That we can't be going and making these desperation moves right now, when we might as well just go through the playoffs with what we have and then start in the offseason and take a look at what our team's going to look like for next year.
And that's why I said that, and that's why I think that's exactly what's going to be going on, because you're going to see teams that are on the cusp, that are in that 5th place or in that 6th place, that are, tied with, because there's a lot of, it's very close. A lot of the divisions are very tight. Yep. So it's very close. And some of these teams are going to be like, well, we might as well just, what? That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think there are some teams that people are putting in the buyers category because they're playoff teams and they're teams that are going to be looking to make a run. But some of those teams, I think, would almost be better off not doing anything, not messing up with the fact that they're playing so well already this season, and that they probably should just hold pat at the deadline and just take the team that they have into the playoffs. The big one to me that stands out in that category is the Carolina Hurricanes. I know there's a lot of people talking about them trying to add another piece. It's like Carolina's been phenomenal this season. I wouldn't mess with that at all. I would just take this team and see what you can do in the playoffs.
You know what, though? It wouldn't hurt. You know what I mean? It's not like if they could get a top 6 guy or whatever, that wouldn't hurt them.
Where are they going to put that in the lineup? Their top 6 is already full.
I mean, what if they get? Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know. You know what I mean? We're not in the general manager's heads here for Carolina. I wish we were, because wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, well, that's a team that I don't think should do anything. That's a team that if I was the GM, I would not be doing anything.
Oh no, see, that's what I mean. I agree.
There's nothing to add. Take the team that you have. Tampa Bay, Tampa, if anything, is going to be unloading contracts at the deadline and trying to get rid of a Tyler Johnson or somebody like that.
Or something, yeah. Or Barcow or Barclay or whatever.
Those will probably be off-season moves, but they could try and do something at the deadline with that.
If anybody's going to be willing to take it.
Yeah, I don't know. But Tampa's another team. I'm not adding if I'm the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm taking this team that just won the cup.
They can't.
They can't add because of salary cap. But even if they had $10 million in cap space right now, I would take this exact team into the playoffs. I would just stick with this team.
Okay, well, technically they do until their playoff starts, and then the cap doesn't count anymore, and then the best right winger in all of hockey gets to come back and play.
Oh yeah, well they're getting Kucherov back for the
Well,
postseason
but
anyway. That's a
so that's
cheat
what I mean.
code.
So that's their trade deadline deal right there. That's their, hey, we make it to the playoffs. This guy gets to play. He's already been part of the team for how long? All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's a cheat code. Him being allowed to come back and not counting because
I
the only
agree.
reason they're not like $10 million over the cap right now is because he's on LTIR.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I would also not be doing anything either if I was Florida. I probably wouldn't be doing anything either if I was Colorado or Vegas. You know what I mean? But then you get teams like maybe Minnesota or maybe St. Louis. You get teams like maybe Edmonton, maybe Montreal. I'm just, throwing
If I'm
darts
Edmonton, I'm trying to add a forward. If I'm Colorado, I'm trying to add a depth piece. They need a grinder on that fourth line. That's
But you
been
see
their
what I mean,
biggest.
though? Yeah.
Yeah. No, there will be more depth moves, but there are some teams that I think just should do absolutely nothing. Carolina being the poster child of that. But
Yeah, that would be a good. Yeah, don't do anything. Yeah, don't mess it up.
But there are some teams that will make depth moves, and there might be some teams that go for more of that bigger move and try and go out and make some sort of splash and really put themselves over the top for the playoffs. It seems like when that happens, it doesn't usually work out. Like I remember when the Bruins back in 2018 went and got Rick Nash at the trade deadline from the Rangers, and they gave up a lot to get Rick Nash.
And that didn't work out real well.
And they still, Nash was decent, but they still lost in the second round to Tampa Bay. And it's like you gave up Ryan Lindgren, who was a great defensive prospect. Now on playing with Adam Fox on the top pair in New York, you gave him up in a first round pick to get knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. And it's like, is that really worth it? And then Nash couldn't even come back and play the next season because of the concussion issues that he had, and he ended up retiring. So that was like, those big moves don't always work, and sometimes it's better not to go out and get the Taylor Hall or the Johnny Gaudreau, and you're better off doing nothing or being one of those teams that goes out and gets the depth pieces, like Philadelphia last year when they brought in Nate Thompson and Derek Grant. Those are like those fourth line depth veterans that teams want going into the playoffs, just to have that little bit of added depth in that lineup.
Well, at that time too, we were missing time. I think JVR was hurt. I think Lawton was hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we had some forwards that were out and missing time. I think Raffle was out as well too. So we had to do something because we were missing that. And what was kind of ironic that you say that is that they were kind of brought in to be those guys that would be policemen, that would be those guys that would be protectors, those guys that would drop the gloves, whatever the case is, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't work either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, only one team can win the cup, so it's like whatever team that is, their deadline moves worked, and then for everybody else it didn't work.
It was a failure, right?
Yeah.
But you know what though? It's kind of funny though, because it's funny that you mentioned Boston, because maybe Boston, maybe Philly might be having one of those moves in them this year. Who knows? I know that Boston could probably try to do something to try to get. They're already in fourth place. I don't know. You look up and down this whole entire league, and you just look at teams and go, well, Nashville's suddenly in fourth place, and everybody was talking about how, Forsberg, who was unfortunately hurt right now, could potentially be on the block, and,
he's not going anywhere now.
Exactly. He was going to be on the block as well, too, and blah, blah, blah. And now they're in fourth place, and well, wait a minute.
It's funny, like 3 weeks ago, Nashville was supposed to be the big seller at the deadline and the team that everyone was going to go for these pieces. And now Nashville might not be selling anything at the deadline because they're in a playoff spot now.
Exactly. And they're missing Forsberg, and they're missing some pieces too due to injury.
Out.
So
I'm not sure if Ellis has come back yet or not, but he missed a bunch of time too.
Exactly.
So they've got pieces out, and they're still finding ways to pull themselves into fourth. And Chicago, in a way, is kind of giving it to them as well. Chicago's been really rough recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about them later.
Been fighting either.
Yeah, absolutely. But trade deadline's coming up, and that's going to be it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be a fun day. I think, deadline day itself might not have that many moves. I think there might be more moves before the deadline in like the 5-6 days going into the trade deadline on April 12th.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be interesting to see what these teams do. And this is a very weird year with the shortened season and COVID and all the other variables going into it this year. I don't think it's going to be your typical NHL trade deadline.
And I agree. And it hasn't been. I mean, last year's wasn't, and then the free agency this year was a completely different time of the year. So that was all completely the exact opposite of when free agency normally is.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? The whole 9 yards. This is not when the normal trade deadline is. It's like 4 months beyond when it's supposed to be, or 2 months beyond when it's supposed to be. It's usually like in the middle of February or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and the fact that there's been such a condensed season and you're getting, teams are playing, every other night.
Yep.
So it makes it kind of much more difficult to try to do anything like that, especially during this time of during this particular season.
Yep.
Next year, when things kind of go back more to a normal 82 game schedule where your teams are not playing every single night or every other night, they're playing in one night, then there's 3-4 nights and they're playing a game. Then there's 3-4 nights and they play a game. And then they might have a back-to-back and then they have 3-4 nights off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, so one team that might be doing something at the trade deadline now, because they just lost their top defenseman, is the Florida Panthers. That's my number one story. Aaron Ekblad is out for the season. It was a really nasty looking injury. I remember seeing it on Twitter and watching the clip of it, and it was one of those that you just cringe at and you go, oh, that's not good. We found out a couple days later that he did fracture his left leg, and he is out for 12 weeks, which at this point of the year is done for the season. So the Panthers, who have been having an incredibly good season this year, are fighting with Tampa Bay for first place in the Central Division, and actually right up there with the best teams in the entire NHL, are now without their number one defenseman for the rest of the season. And Aaron Ekblad was having a fantastic year at both ends of the ice before this injury as well. He was racking up assists, he could chip in goals, and he was playing very well defensively, which
I'll say
has been a bit of an issue for not only him, but much of this Panthers defense core in years before this. But now this year, all of a sudden, their defensive game has really come together. And Ekblad was just having an awesome season. And this is a huge blow to the Florida Panthers, and you really feel for Ekblad because he was doing so well this year. This was a great season for him and a great season for the team, and then just like that, one bad fall along the boards like that, and his season's over. So that's going to make things interesting for Florida here down the stretch. How are they going to look without Ekblad? How are they going to play without one of their best players and their top D-man? And does that affect what they do at the trade deadline? Are they going to go looking for a defenseman now? Maybe, obviously, you're not going to replace a number one defenseman at the trade deadline in one guy, but you maybe just bring in another body and have at least some more depth in another piece there.
Something, you know what I mean? Because they're going to have to. Okay, I mean, we're getting into that time now where teams are starting to sign their college prospects now to their entry-level contracts and things of that nature.
Yep.
And what is really interesting that you mentioned about Ekblad in Florida is that Knight signed his contract. So now potentially their second-string goalie now suddenly could have more of a trade block type of mentality going on here with the team, where they could bring this Knight kid in and be just as good and put Drager out there and see what they could get to try to help backstop, or you know what I mean? I'm just saying it's something that's potentially that could be the issue.
I think that Knight's going to have to do at least 1 year in the AHL first. I don't think he's going to come right into the NHL lineup. He'll do at least a year down in the A.
That's what you would hope that they do.
Yeah, his path is going to be very similar, I think, to Jake Ottinger's in Dallas, where he was a highly touted goaltender coming out of college, and he did. Ottinger played, I think, a couple years down with Dallas's AHL team, and then ended up coming up and playing some games in the playoffs last year when Bishop was out, and now he's the backup this year for Hudobin. So. And actually, he's kind of split with Hudobin. Actually, I think Ottinger is kind of slowly taking that starting job in Dallas. But, Knight, I don't think is ready to be an AHL guy yet. I think he's going to do at least a year in the AHL, then maybe move into the backup role, and then a few years down the line, maybe be the guy.
Okay, I got you. But I mean, it could be something that they could. I don't know. I mean, they also have the number one Canadian goalie as well as part of their up and coming goalies as well too. So I mean, hey, they've got a little bit of talent coming.
Yeah, they've got some goalie prospects coming up. So, and they still have Bobrovsky signed for like 5 more years after this one. So
exactly,
it's going to be an interesting goaltending situation. But for Florida, we'll see what they do at the deadline. Ekblad now we know is out for the year. We all pretty much figured that when the injury happened, but now we know for sure.
Just watching that, yeah.
And that's a huge blow for the Florida Panthers, who have been having a great season this year. So
yeah, kind of stinks for them. It really does.
Yeah,
agreed. They were playing very well, and they were actually the surprise team. I think you actually have to mention Quenneville now as part of the Jack Adams.
Based on what the writers are saying, he seems to be the favorite at this point for Coach of the Year. All the writers are talking about him as the favorite.
Yeah. How can you not? This team was not expected to do anything, especially how they looked out of the gates, and Bobrovsky was not playing well, and he's finally starting to come around. I mean, he's not, completely playing up to his shutdown Vezina self, but he's getting there. I mean, he's close. I mean, all he needs to do is play 80% of that.
Yep. And that's what he's doing. He's playing like 80% of that Vezina level goaltender. And Florida's a good enough team for them to win games with him at that level, and that's what they're doing here. And Drieger's played really, really well as well.
Exactly. And he's only done nothing but increase his stock as well too, because he's probably going to be on the block in Florida due to the nature of the prospect talents that's coming up through for them. So I mean, all right. You know what? That was kind of a perfect little way that we did that, how that kind of just worked in there. And we've got some interesting news for your second one. Do you want to do your second one?
Well, we got them the same here, so we might as well do the good news and the bad news, and we'll start with the good news. This is number 2 for both of us. The Buffalo Sabres finally win a game. It was a long time coming. It was their first win since February 23rd, I believe, but Wednesday night, just a couple nights ago, they beat the Philadelphia Flyers 6-1. I was actually streaming that game. It was a great game to stream because it was just like the team that either it was going to be great no matter what happens. Either Buffalo's streak went to 19 and they passing Pittsburgh for the record of over 18.
Right.
Or they were going to finally win a game and the streak was going to end. So it was like no matter what happened, it was going to be a fun night.
Right.
And the Sabres finally won a game, and it was actually really nice to see. You could see how happy the players were on the bench. Like, the way that, once they got into that third period and they had that 3-goal lead, but you were like, well, they blew a 3-goal lead on Monday night, so this game's not over. And then they got the 5th goal, and like the weight just completely got taken off of their shoulders after the 5th goal. And you could just see how happy the players were. They knew that they won the game. And
exactly.
Finally,
it was fight left in Philly.
Yeah, Philly was done at that point. And it's a big congratulations to the Buffalo Sabres for ending the streak at 18 and winning a game. And it's been a tough year for them, really tough year for their fans. And It's been such a long season where they've only won
Yeah,
7 games, but to see them get in the win column was pretty cool, and it was again, it's worth congratulating them for finally breaking that streak.
agreed. I mean, it still doesn't get them off the coldest list, but
No,
hey, they
definitely
win
not.
one.
They don't have a 0 in the win column anymore, and that's what's important.
Over the last
10,
what is it?
well, now
18,
like
19
probably
games.
like 8, yeah, their last 19 games they have one
Right.
win, but
So there you
it's
go.
not a 0, so that's good.
Right. And as painful as this game was to watch, um watching Buffalo, finally put it together. And
Hmm.
and I think it was more of a combination of they actually did enough to win the game, but they
Yeah.
were able to score on set plays. They were able to score during the power play, so they were able to take advantage of every situation and score in every particular situation in that manner.
Hmm.
Philadelphia really didn't only play the first period and a half.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Sabres win at all, but I think Philadelphia is majorly on the decline right now, and to say that you beat Philadelphia is kind of like saying that you beat the Sabres.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, you see the shirt back there, so I mean, for me
yeah.
to say that is like, well, okay, I
Well,
just call it like I see it.
it's not been good for the Flyers here as of recent, and Buffalo, I thought, did play really well in that game. It's particularly like they came out ready to play more than
Yeah,
I was expecting. And they kind of set the tone early in that game, like, hey, this isn't going to be a pushover win. Like, we're here to play. And
exactly.
once they got on the board, it was like, okay, like they had that believability in them,
When
and
that,
they kept
yeah,
playing well, and they ended up putting a real good whole game together. And then Philadelphia, I think, just kind of checked out of that game and was like, all right, well, this is gonna be embarrassing, but I don't think we're gonna come back. And that just kind of handed things, especially in the third period, to the Sabres, and that game was just over at that point.
that was also the game too where Gossespierre was put on waivers,
Yep.
and they had and they had Patrick and Lindblom sitting as well
Yeah,
too.
they healthy scratched Patrick and Lindblom, which I don't understand at all, because it seems like in the Flyers games that I've seen, like those have been two guys that are actually playing like they somewhat care, while half the team is just kind of out there going through the motions. It's like, why would you scratch those guys? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Philly is it's kind of a disaster right now, and I'm a little surprised Vino still has a job at this point.
Well, you know what? Look, we talked about this on the Hockey Writers Inc. show, and if you were the owner of the Flyers right now, what would be the first move you make? You'd be going down to your general manager and you'd be like going, "Look here, man, you better be able to pull this through because if you don't, then things are going to be different.
Yep.
Because you're already how many more coaches do you need to change? How many more general managers do you need to change? You need to start changing the players now,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Because like we've gone through Ron Hextall as a cup winning general manager. You know what I'm saying? We've had cup winning coaches, a carousel of coaches in Philadelphia over the last 10 years.
Yep.
Okay, and so that doesn't help to bring stability to that franchise that all they touted at the beginning of the franchise was stability.
Yep.
So I mean, until they get that particular situation rectified, it doesn't really matter what coach you bring in. It doesn't really matter what general manager you bring in,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're going to continue to lose with who you got, then you got to start changing the players.
Well, do you think it's time to blow the core up in Philadelphia? They've had Giroux, Voracek. I mean, those have kind of been the two key cogs for the past decade now for the Flyers, and they seem to be able to get into the playoffs every other year. and they make some noise in the playoffs usually when they do get in, but then it's been like they've missed the playoffs the other seasons. And how
Well,
far
last year in the
can they go?
playoffs, Voracek and Giroux didn't score an area goal.
Yeah.
So what?
It was kind of
Okay, you got
Couturier
me there,
running
but
the
then what?
show. Couturier seems like he's the guy that kind of runs the show. Like, he's the best player for the
So
Flyers
that's
now.
would be the one I would keep, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think Couturier is the best player up front at this point, easily.
And he's still young. He's still got a team-friendly deal. You know what I mean? That would
Yep.
be the one I'd keep. You
Yeah.
know, and Provorov, I'd keep him.
Yeah.
And Moran, I'd keep him too. And Carter Hart, I'd keep him.
Farabee's looked good this year.
Yeah, Farabee, keep him too.
Farabee leads
Yeah.
the team in goals. I think you got to kind of start building around those guys, and I think it might be time
Okay,
for
so
Giroux and
there's
Voracek to
yes.
take off.
There's a much longer list of guys that the team probably shouldn't keep.
Yeah.
than the list of guys that they are gonna probably should keep, or I don't. I'm just observational. I'm just observing things here,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, well, things right now are not great in Philadelphia. They're not great in Boston either, but Philly's the one that's dropped out of the playoff spot. So they're really taking some heat right now. And for Buffalo, obviously, I mean, it's great for them to get a win. That's the main thing, is it's great for them to finally get a win.
They looked really good too. I mean, as far as
Mhm.
being able to have some good plays, they had good pressure during the game. They had really point blank shots. They had traffic in front of the net, which is exactly the MO that you need to do in order to beat Philadelphia. They played that to the T. They were more physical than Philadelphia, obviously. They didn't quite win the face-off battle, but they were able to win the key face-offs that were able to, get them to where they needed to go. I mean, look, when you score 6 goals,
Yeah, it was a good game, and it was nice to see them get back into the win column. So Buffalo picks up a win and ends the long, long losing streak, and that is the good news. Unfortunately, we have some bad news as our third top story.
Yeah.
Vancouver, not doing well with the COVID situation right now. Believe they are up to 8 people between players and staffs.
Yeah.
I don't know the breakdown of how many staff versus how many players, but it's
Right.
8 in total at least right now that are on the COVID protocol list or have tested positive, or for
Whatever. Yeah.
for some reason they're on the list, and they are not going to be playing until they're able to pass the protocols. And there's a lot of fear that there are going to be some more positives as well around the league. And their games through, I think, Tuesday have been postponed already. But again,
Yeah.
all the Elliot Friedman, John Shannon, all the writers were basically saying today that it's probably going to go longer than that. It's just not official yet. But Vancouver's dealing with a pretty sizable COVID outbreak here. And the last 2 have been in Canada. It's interesting how this is working, where the whole first half of the season, it was the U.S. teams. It kind of went division by division and started with the Central, touched the East, then went to the West, then went back and hit the East really hard. And then now the U.S. teams are kind of in decent shape. We're not having games postponed right now or anything. And the last 2 COVID outbreaks where games have had to have been postponed were the Montreal Canadiens and now the Vancouver Canucks. So it's hitting Canada now, which it didn't do in the first part of the season. And it's not really hitting the U.S. as much, which it hit really hard early in the season.
Yeah, especially because Dallas wasn't even able to start
the
and
year. Yeah,
they had 17 staff, players, and coaches on the list at the beginning of the year. Then it ran through Colorado, and then it ran through New Jersey, and then it ran through Philadelphia and Buffalo and Boston and yeah, you know what I mean. And
Carolina got it at
Carolina
one point.
got whammied too. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's been around. It's gone through. It's kind of you know what's really strange, and I'm not trying to be weird or anything about this, but it's like pre-COVID, and you hear about, well, it's going through the team, the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So guys will miss a game or two, you know what I mean? And then they're back.
Yep.
Right. And then it's gone, and you don't hear about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the flu's going through, and it usually happens over the winter. You get a couple of guys that go, oh, he's out due to illness.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know what I mean? And so the fact that they're shutting things down, I don't know. I keep coming back to this thing where we're never going to get to a zero number.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't keep closing things down just because, I don't know.
Well, I think they're they're worried about the much more severe symptoms, and like if the flu rips through the team, it's gone in a few days, and everyone's sick for a couple days, but then they're fine. And this has much more severe symptoms in certain cases, and it also like it takes longer. Like it's around longer. Like the flu, you're good in 3-4 days. You're good with the flu, and like the team will be back and everyone will be healthy and fine. Whereas this, you're seeing it rip through the teams and they're out like 10 days. But then it's similar in the way where like once it goes through the team, like that's kind of been it. It hasn't really ripped through teams twice. Like once they get it over with, and then they're back. And that's generally how it's been. It takes a little bit longer for them to get back is the difference.
I'm with you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's also, you can't really, this is not like the, where you, feed a cold and starve the flu, or starve a cold and feed the flu, or, you know what I mean? It's not like you can go get an IV bag and get some antibiotics in you and you're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there's no like real treatment like that where, if you have the flu, like some guys can just play right through that. Like if you get juiced up before the game with some fluids and get some fruit in you and stuff, and like
some electrolytes
have a good pregame meal and some Gatorade, like you can play through the flu. Whereas this, I don't think you can't play through it like that.
Right.
And also the risk of spreading it is like
more so
much more with this, that like if you played when you had it, you'd probably give it to everyone on the bench and then the whole team would have it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's nice that we get to clear things up, you know what I mean? Because people have questions about what's going on and why they do things, you know what I mean? And I like being able to supply that kind of information about, well, why is it going on like this and why things are happening like this?
Yep.
And I do understand that we're not going to get to a zero number, but there's also the protocols. And I think of all of the leagues, I think that the NHL has done a very admirable job of taking care of things and making sure that these guys are taken care of, and making sure that everybody is, when they've had to deal with it, I think they've been good. I think they've been the model of what other leagues should look at as far as, how to do things, how to handle things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I have been very impressed by what the NHL has done. And so the fact that they're canceling games, I think, is maybe an ounce of prevention. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're trying to prevent it from spreading even further and affecting even more later into the season and stuff, because they're running out of time for makeup games now. That's the thing. Like when you, back at the beginning of February, if you had to miss a couple weeks and a team got shut down, like you had April and May and even game times in March for these games to be made up. But now we're into April. You're missing games now. You only have a few weeks of the season left. You have games already scheduled for those few weeks. And now you have to try and sprinkle in these, 4, 5, 6 games that you're going to miss now. So it's getting more and more difficult to find time for their postponed games to be made up as well. So I think the NHL wants to get this locked down as quickly as possible, so they miss the fewest number of games possible.
Well, here's going to be an interesting prospect for you, okay? Supposing we get to the end of the season and we have some teams that still haven't played, 56 games.
Yeah, right now everyone is scheduled to make the 56, but that could change if more games have to be canceled as the season goes along. Then they would probably be using point percentage, I guess, in the standings as opposed to total number of points like they normally do.
Okay. I mean, I'm just curious as to what's going to happen.
No, I think point percentage is the fallback plan.
Okay.
So if a team only plays 54 games or whatever, and
Right.
everyone else in their division plays 56, it would go by point percentage rather than that team missing out on potentially 4 points, which could cost them a playoff spot or not, depending on who it is. I think that they would go by point percentage.
Okay. Look, the fact that they're able to try to isolate this and kind of keep it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
where
that's the goal, is to isolate it and get everything shut down so that it doesn't go anywhere else. They get it through Vancouver, and then Vancouver comes back and everything's fine again and back rolling the way that it's supposed to be.
And with the new protocols that they put in place and the more rapid testing that the NHL has established a couple weeks ago, where they're doing this now more so. I mean, yeah, they've had some false positives where they've had some players that went on the COVID list and then the next day they come off the COVID list. 2 days
later or a day later, yeah.
You know, so, but the fact that they've tried to do other and more things to increase the speed of the results so that players can be tested and get the results back much more rapidly.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so that's always a good thing as far as keeping the players on the ice, so to speak.
Definitely.
You know. And I think it's one of those things too where if you get to this point and you start having to reschedule games and things of that nature, and you get to the end of the season and now you're not able to make up those games, I mean, I think that's going to affect things, especially at the end of the year.
Yeah.
If they run into one of these like down the road, if it swings back around again or something, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
if we get if there's like a team that has to postpone games at the beginning of May, they're not making those games up. There's no time to. Their schedule's already full for the rest of the year. Like, they could maybe make up one because the NHL did build in that extra week for literally 4 postponed games. That they've already gone into that week now. From when the season was originally supposed to end to where it is ending now, they've gone into that week that they had as a buffer zone. I don't think they filled it yet, so a team could make up like 1 or 2 more games. But if you had like a big outbreak in the middle or at the beginning of May, and a team ended up missing like a week or a week and a half, some of those games just flat out would not be able to be made up in
logistically.
Time. Logistically, it would be impossible. So then you'd be looking at point percentage at that point as to where they finish in the standings.
Okay. I'm just hopeful that this can be, taken care of and gets to be goes through things and Vancouver's able to hopefully be back by Thursday.
Yeah, I
guess.
So.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, from what I've been reading and everything, they're supposed to be going through another round of testing, and per the results of this next round of testing will determine whether or not the team is going to continue to postpone games up until next Thursday.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're already canceled till Tuesday, but if the test results come back and everything's cool, then they could be playing by Thursday.
Yes. If not, we'd probably see another week added to that.
Or, at least another couple more days or whatever the case is until, because I think it's like, 72 hours? You have to have a test and then it has to come back negative twice in the span of 72 hours or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with Vancouver. It was not looking good this morning, though. And they definitely are having some games postponed, at least up until Tuesday. Maybe beyond that, depending on how the other test results come back. But there's definitely a bit of an outbreak going on there. So wishing everyone up in Vancouver the best, and hopefully they're back and ready to go as soon as possible. But they're obviously not going to come back until they are healthy and ready. And the threat of this becoming an even bigger breakout has subsided. So those are our top stories for this episode for today, and that's going to bring us to our first commercial break. So when we come back, we'll be doing one of our favorite segments of the entire show, Power Rankings, Top Shelf, where we look at the best teams in the NHL. But before that, we are going to hear a word from Canine Country Club Resorts. Again, we want to give a huge thank you to CCC Resorts for all of the support of everything here at Steel Flyers, the website, everyone that has a show and contributes to Steel Flyers, and all the shows that we have and everybody's channels. So thank you very, very much to Canine Country Club Resorts. And this is their commercial that you will hear from the show sponsor.
Greetings. This is Steel Flyers from the Steel Flyers All Sports Network, and we have two very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of two locations both in Mannheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. Steel Flyers stands behind this company 100%. Taken care of Steel Flyers' furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. And both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The Steel Flyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. a full-service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God.
And we are back again. A huge thank you to Canine Country Club Resorts for all of his support for all of us here at Steel Flyers. And Steel, it is time for Top Shelf, one of our favorite segments each and every week, our weekly power rankings where we talk about the best teams in the NHL. And we might as well get right into it with number 5. Who do you got at number 5 this week?
Well, I'll tell you what. This was probably the hardest week to do this.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because if you look at the standings, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We could pick the 5 top teams that have 50 points.
Yeah, there's 5 teams tied with 50 points right now.
Right.
So, trying to select individual teams out of those that are all tied. It's like, well, which ones do you pick?
So here's how I did it, right? So I just went like this.
Yep.
Not really, no, but basically that's kind of, so I kind of sort of went with Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Just because I really have a hard time not putting Vegas in. I really had a hard time not putting the Islanders in. I really had a hard time not putting the Capitals in. But Pittsburgh has won a couple more games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so and those games in a row that they won were, against teams like Islanders and, so.
Yeah.
That's why I put Pittsburgh at number 5.
Yeah, I struggled not to put the Penguins on here because they've played very, very well, especially as of recent. But I have the Washington Capitals in at number 5 because standings-wise, they are still leading the division. Everybody's all tied. Them, Pittsburgh, the Islanders, they all have 50 points, but Washington is still technically leading the division. They've got only 9 regulation losses on the year. So I put the Capitals in at number 5. They've struggled recently. They've lost a few games here. The recent games that they've played, but I still think the Capitals are one of the top teams in the league, and they're going to be a really tough team down the stretch. They're going for this division win, and it was tough to pick because there were some great options for 5 here, but I ended up going with Washington.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Last week you had Washington at number 5 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I had Washington at number 4 last week, and so that's why it was really, really tough to put Pittsburgh in here. But that's why I put Pittsburgh in here, because they have won 5 in a row.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so even though they have the same number of points and, all that, just Pittsburgh has won more games in a row than what Washington's been able to do recently. And like I said, it was really tough to not put Vegas there or even the Islanders there too. So, so we have Washington for your number 5, and I have Pittsburgh for my number 5. So who do you have, John, for number 4?
Yeah, number 4, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. They are 24-8-3 on the season, and they've been playing well, but they haven't been playing like that dominant Carolina game that we were seeing earlier in the year. They just split a series with Chicago. Chicago's not playing very well right now, dropping out of that 4th spot, and they're in a dogfight for playoff position right now with Columbus and Nashville, who's currently in the spot. But Carolina, it hasn't been fantastic recently. So they I think have dropped a little bit in my opinion, but they're still a very good team. I still can't talk highly enough about the Hurricanes. They're still definitely a top 5 team in the league. A couple of not so great games isn't going to change that. And I still needed to have them on the list. So they come in at number 4 for me.
Yeah, you had them 2 last week.
Yeah.
Second on the list. I had them 3rd. on my list last week as well too. So you have them for number 4. My number 4 team is going to be the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
This team has just been within the last. I'm going to go back even further and go within the last 15 games.
Yeah.
This team has done nothing short of lighting it up.
That's an understatement. Yeah, I mean, they've been unreal.
When you win a game 9-3 and you do it more than once, okay. I mean, this team is just coming together at the right time. All cylinders are clicking, and this team has become quite the all-around team.
Yep.
Because you can't go, oh, well, they're a defensive team, or they're an offensive team, or they're all about their goal. They kind of have an all-around game.
They're both. They're a defensive team and an offensive team. They do everything well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's who I have as my number 4. I had Colorado higher last week. I had them second, but there was just so much winning that was going on, and Colorado did kind of take a little bit of a hit there, but they're still 8-0-2 in their last 10 games, and this list is so tough to do, and so I mean they even Colorado has 50 points.
Yeah.
So okay, what?
Yeah, I have Colorado at number 3 on my list, and I almost want to put them higher right now, and I think next week they will be higher. They're 23-8-4 on the season, but they have been rolling as of recent. I mean, just absolute powerhouse of a team. And the big reason I want to move Colorado higher, even just right now, is because the last 2 days I've done videos looking at the best offensive and the best defensive teams in the league. Number 1 in goals for per game this season, the Colorado Avalanche. Number 1 in the goals against per game this season, the Colorado Avalanche. They're literally the best offensive and the best defensive team in the league this year. So I feel like they should probably be number 1 on the list, but I still have a couple teams up ahead of them. Maybe because they've played more games and have more wins in the win column. That's probably why. But Colorado, there's literally nothing to complain about. They're not a defensive team. Well, they are, but they're also an offensive team. They literally do everything well. They're a powerhouse in the West, and Avalanche are definitely one of the best teams in the league.
Okay, so that we just flip-flopped 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
Right, okay, because I had Carolina at number 3. I had Colorado at number 4. Colorado, by the way, is a plus 47 in goal differential. Which
I think that leads the league in goal differential.
The next closest one is 40, and that is Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they lead the league in goal differential too. So best offense, best defense, and best goal differential all belong to the Colorado Avalanche.
Right, but I thought that Carolina, for my number 3 played a little. I like Carolina a little better.
Okay.
I mean, just for right now. For this week, but I agree. I think Colorado is going to probably jump a little higher next week for me as well.
Yeah.
But I have Colorado at 4, Carolina at 3. Carolina, they've played the same number of games. They have the same number of wins. They're only one difference in the overtime. Carolina is a plus 28, but I mean Carolina's playing in that division with Tampa Bay and Florida.
Yeah, I think Carolina is definitely playing tougher competition on a night-to-night basis because Colorado gets the California teams. They get to play Arizona. They get to play St. Louis, which the Blues haven't had a great year. I mean, Vegas and Minnesota are definitely tough matchups for the Avalanche, but the rest of that division is definitely weaker than the Central for sure.
Agreed. Yeah. So that's kind of why I have that like that for that right there. That's why I have Colorado at number 4 and Carolina at number 3 for me.
Yes. So who do you have at number 2 then?
Okay. So number 2 is Florida Panthers.
Same.
Hey, go figure. What do you know? Hey, they've won the last 4. They're 6-4-0 in the last 10.
Yep.
Okay, but Florida, even though they've lost Ekblad, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Ekman, even though they've lost him,
they're still finding ways to
still
win. They're still competitive.
Drieger has been playing well. Bobrovsky has been playing well. The rest of their, Huberdeau's been playing well. The Yandel's been playing well. I mean, Florida is looking like the Colorado of the this side of the Rockies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just more of the complete team where they're able to play very well in all phases of the game. They have pretty good defense, pretty good offense. You know what I mean? So who knew? Florida, who knew?
The surprising Panthers continue to surprise and in the best way possible. They've been awesome this year, and they still are 24-9-4 on the season. They're right up there near the top of the Central, fighting it out with Carolina and Tampa Bay for that top spot, and that's a very tough division. They play a lot of difficult, hard-fought games, and they win a lot of them. So Carolina's
they
number
have
2.
Been winning a lot of them.
Yeah, and they've won, I think, 4 in a row now. So
yeah.
Florida's on my list at number 2 as well. That Central has been really tough all year long, and they're hanging right in there, even with Aaron Ekblad injured. So kudos to the Panthers, and they are my number 2 team as well.
Do you know, here's another thing, too. Florida is playing, much tougher competition with the Tampa Bays and the Carolinas, and then even the rest of the teams in the rest of the rest of the division. You know what I mean? It's not like that division is a slouch division. Those games are all tough games.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. Like, if you look at the top of the West, they have Vegas, they have Colorado, they have Minnesota. In the top of the Central, they have Tampa Bay, they have Florida, they have Carolina. That is kind of a wash to me. That evens out pretty well. The rest of the Central is definitely more difficult than the rest of the West.
Agreed.
The other teams like the Nashvilles, the Chicagos, the Columbuses, the Dallases, those are tougher games that the Central Division teams have to play than the bottom of the West, where you have San Jose and Arizona and LA and Anaheim, and like I just think the Central overall is better, so that makes it more difficult for those top teams, and that's I think why the Central teams are getting placed a little bit higher than the top of the West Division.
Well, they also have more points too, but I mean, that's the other thing too. Carolina has one more point than Colorado, so and Florida has one more point than Carolina.
Yep.
So it's like, really? Okay. All right. So we both agree on number 2.
Florida,
I bet you we agree on number 1 as well too.
Oh yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've been there for like, I don't know how many shows straight, and they're probably going to stay there until somebody comes along and knocks them down. But they're 25-9-2 on the season.
Yeah.
Are they the first team to 25 wins? I don't have the standings right in front of me.
They do have 25 wins.
Yeah, are they the only team?
They are the only team with 25 wins.
They're the first team to hit 25 wins this year. So there's your number 1 team right there.
And they've only played 36 games.
Yeah, they've played 36 games. They have 20 remaining, and they already have 25 wins. So they could potentially push for 40 wins this season. I don't think they'll get there, but they'll definitely go over 35. They'll definitely win. Well, no, hang on. They got 20 games left. They're absolutely winning at least 35 then. Could they win 15 out of their last 20 and get to 40 wins this year? I feel like that's possible with this Lightning team. That'd be a lot. That'd be winning 75% of your remaining games.
Ooh, yeah.
It'd be tight, but they're definitely going to go over 35 wins.
I'll tell you what, though. You know what, though, John? That's a big ask, man, because those remaining 20 games are not exactly against
slouches.
Right.
All right, I'm going to say Tampa Bay finishes this year with 38 wins. That's going to be my prediction.
Oh, wow.
They're going to win 12 of their remaining... No, even that feels low.
It does feel low, but think about that.
38 would be 13. So that'd be 13 of the remaining 20 games. That feels low. but
It does,
15
but think
feels
about it
high.
though. Think about it. If you add 12 more to the wins that they have, and that's
That's 37.
37, 9-2.
Well, they'd have the other.
Well, no, I mean, but that's just for those 12 games that you add on there, and then so what's the rest? 8 games left.
Yeah,
So
8
you
games
split them
would be
out, put them in.
left.
Yeah, split them out.
So they'd finish like 37, 13, and 6 or something like that.
Or yeah, something crazy like that.
That's a great record. I'm gonna say they finish with 38 wins this year, but I do think they have a chance to get to 40.
Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean they're the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Why not?
The lineup's loaded. They're the defending champs. They're having another great season. They've been awesome this year, and they're still number 1 on my list and probably going to stay there.
You know what? That's the thing. Even if they go on a bender and lose, the next couple of games, it's still that's going to hurt them in the standings. But I still think they're not going to be able to. It's going to be. I mean, Florida and Carolina and Colorado are all nipping at the heels now.
Yeah. They'd have to lose like 3 or 4 in a row, and I just don't see that team doing that.
Yeah. Do you know what's kind of interesting is who we haven't talked about, and this is one of the teams that was on the first say couple of shows was Toronto.
Yeah.
Boy, they just dropped off, didn't they?
Well, they're still winning and they're still a good team, but I think the competition, they're not playing as tough of competition up in the north, and they went through that stretch where they were not very good. They've kind of gotten it back on track now over the last 3-4 games, but they went through a stretch where they were not very good. And
they were losing to teams like Ottawa and Calgary.
Yeah, so they haven't been as consistent as some of these top other teams, especially in the Central Division, like Florida and Tampa Bay, who have been great all year.
Yeah, it's funny that I mentioned that, and I look down here and I go, "Oh, Toronto has 49 points."
Yeah, they're almost to 50, but they're like 7th in the league or 8th in the league or something like that.
Ninth.
They're 9th in the league and they have 49 points.
49 points.
There's 5 teams with 50, and then there's some ahead of them with 51.
Right now, the next closest team is Minnesota with 46, Winnipeg with 46, and then Edmonton at 45.
Yeah.
So they're 4 points ahead of the next closest team in the North.
Yeah. That North Division.
What does that tell you about the North?
Yeah, it's not the same level of competition as you're seeing in the Central.
Exactly. So, I'll tell you what. Last week for our number 1 teams, obviously, was Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Right. So you had Tampa Bay, Carolina, Colorado, the Islanders, and the Capitals. I had Tampa Bay, Colorado, Carolina, the Capitals, and Vegas Golden Knights.
Mm-hmm.
This week, John has Tampa Bay at number 1. I have Tampa Bay at number 1. You have Florida at number 2. I have Florida at number 2.
Yep.
We flip-flop Carolina and Colorado. You have Colorado 3, Carolina 4. I have them flip-flop. And then you have Washington at 5, and I have Pittsburgh at 5.
Yep.
Wow, man.
And then there's a whole bunch of other teams that could be on the list, like the Islanders, like Vegas.
Like Pittsburgh.
Like Pittsburgh for me, yeah. There's other teams right there, too. So
Exactly. Who knew?
There's a lot of good teams this year.
And you can't just say, oh, well, yeah, okay. And then you look at how the teams are playing, and you look at where they're at positionally and everything like that. And it's really, that's what makes it that much even more difficult, because Washington is a really good team, but the Islanders are a really good team.
And the Penguins are a really good team.
The Penguins are a really good team, but Vegas is a really good team.
Yeah,
but Colorado is a very good team.
It's really hard to rank them all.
It is, which makes this really tough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not asking for any sympathy or anything. I'm just
but it's definitely hard to do, especially with so many teams stacked in the standings like that.
Exactly.
But those are our power rankings for this week. That was Top Shelf, and we move on now to our best game from the past week in the NHL. This is always fun to kind of look back and pick out a game that really kind of was just awesome to watch. And for me, we have to go back to last Sunday, March 28th. I actually streamed this game. It was a Sunday afternoon game
Yep.
on NBC.
Yeah.
And this was an awesome game. So much fun. It's a shame that the one that came after it that I streamed between Columbus and Detroit was a little
Not
more
so awesome.
not a little more on the boring side than what this one was. But this was the Capitals against the Rangers on the 28th. It was a 5-4 Capitals win, but there was a huge comeback attempt by the New York Rangers in the third period that made the game really, really interesting. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. Good East Division hockey. And Washington got out to a pretty big lead, but then the Rangers came storming back and had everybody on the edge of their seat for that third period. And I just thought it was a great game. It was a lot of fun to watch. And, man, if every game was like that, I certainly wouldn't be complaining, that's for sure.
I mean, God, it's like every time we turn around here, almost every single game is a must-see game. Almost every single game becomes one of the best games of the week, where there's one or two great, awesome highlight reel saves, or there's two or three highlight reel passes and scores during the game, or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, it was so tough to pick these many games. Oh my God. I looked at that game too, and I thought, wow, that was a good game.
Yep.
That was a really good game. I picked a game that, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later on, but this was one of the games that I looked at here too, was the one played on the 30th of March between the Nashville Predators and the Dallas Stars. This was a Nashville win 3-2 in overtime.
Yeah.
This whole series has become, for me, really awesome to watch. Okay. The Dallas rookie scored. Jason Robertson.
Robertson's had a huge year, very quietly too. No one's really talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that I wanted to kind of bring to the fore here, was that this rookie has had a really good year, and he scored for Dallas. And both teams scored on the power play, and it was just one of those games where it was back and forth, and then it was tied up.
Yep.
And both teams played really hard and really well, and there was a lot of back and forth, and there was some great passing, and oh my gosh, there was some great saves. Right. And then we get into overtime, and that's when Nashville was able to take care of business there in overtime. But the following night, then Dallas comes back and wins.
Yeah, and that broke Nashville's 6-game winning streak.
Okay. Oh, see, so this game here was the catalyst. This was the start of that, little series here, and they're going to do some more of this too. And that's why this, to me, was my best game of the past week. The Nashville Predators winning against the Dallas Stars in overtime. So that was my game of the week. Yeah,
that was definitely a great one. And Dallas and Nashville have such a great rivalry to begin with, because even in a normal season, they're in the same division. So they've been division rivals for a long time now. And they're still obviously division rivals, and it's been a great season series, and it's going to continue to be as the games mean more and more coming up to the end here, as both teams are fighting for a playoff spot. So.
Exactly, especially with Nashville being in the position that they're in right now, in the 4th position, and then Dallas trying to get back in with so many games in hand.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, if Dallas is able to win those games in hand, like against Nashville, that's going to put them more in the driver's seat than anybody else.
Yeah, definitely. So those are our best games from the past week in the NHL. They were both awesome games, as there are every week in this in the league. And
yeah,
those were talking about games. Now we're going to talk about players. It's time for 3 stars of the week. This is where we look at individual players who have had awesome performances over the past week. And might as well just go through 3 through 1 here. It's funny, we have slightly different order, but the same 3 players. These 3 definitely stood out in my opinion.
Agreed.
So, Steele, if you want to take it away, you can give your 3 stars.
Okay, I'll start at number 3, and then I'll go up to 1, and I'll give you all 3 of them. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now you'll have to help me here on some of these pronunciations if I if I butcher them, I'll lean on you. But Jonas Donskoi,
first name I think is said Eunice.
Eunice
Donskoi.
Donskoi. All right.
Yeah,
Eunice
you did get Donskoi.
Jay Donskoi.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Okay.
The Americanized way of saying it would be like just say Jonas or Jay, but yeah, traditionally it would be Jonas Donskoi.
Okay, Jonas Donskoi for the Colorado Avalanche in 3 games played has 4 goals, has 2 assists for 6 points, is a +5, has a power play goal and a game-winning goal. Yep. He is just another in the long list of players, McKinnon, Landeskog, Donskoi, that are just blowing it up there in Colorado.
And too, yep.
I mean, what? It's a list.
Yeah.
Right? And pick one. This guy just happened to be the one that really played well in the last couple of games, especially 4 goals there, and then the game-winning goal on a power play goal as well, 6 points. Yep. He was my number 3 star.
Yep.
All right. You got to go with this guy. I mean, you can't ignore this. And I went with Matthew Barzal from the New York Islanders. 3 games played, 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points, a +4.
8 points.
Right, he had a hattie last night.
Yeah, and a huge Islanders win too over the Capitals.
That was a huge win.
Yep.
Over the Capital. I specifically watched that game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that was the game that I thought, wow, this will be the game that I should probably watch.
Yeah.
New York Islanders,
game
Washington
of the day,
Capitals.
For sure.
You know, fighting for the lead. Yeah, watch this game. By the second period, it was like, all right, well,
the Isles got this game. Yep.
Like, seriously, all right, whatever. But yeah, Matthew Barzal, 2, he's my 2nd star.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna say it. Carter Verhagee.
Verhagee, yep.
Verhagee, all right. Another of a long list of players from the Florida Panthers who have just been doing phenomenal things offensively.
Yep.
Okay, and with 4 games played, he's my number 1 star. 4 games played, 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points.
Yep.
+3. You know, this is 2 points a game here, folks.
Yep.
Okay, and 1 power play goal, 1 shorthanded goal, and 1 game-winning goal. I mean,
the total package. The total package for Florida.
The total package. He gets the Gordie Howe of scoring.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the power play goal, the game-winning goal, and a shorty. All right. All right. So, John, who was your 3 stars of the week?
Number 3, I have Jonas Donskoi from the Colorado Avalanche. Same as you. 3 games played, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points, +5, 1 game-winning goal. He had a hat trick in there. Donskoi had a huge week. Colorado as a team just lighting it up. He kind of was the shining star of the last game. Yep. And not a guy that, you know, more of kind of the secondary scorer there. So not a guy that gets a lot of the light shine brightly on him, so to say. So it's nice to get him in this segment and talk about him a little bit, because he's kind of one of those forgotten guys for the Avalanche, but he's having a very good season. He had a huge week this week, and he's a big part of the secondary scoring for the Colorado Avalanche, and they're not going to be successful without guys like him and Kadri and Saad playing well.
Exactly. And this is why these guys were brought in here, to do this very thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you know, that's what's amazing, is the seeing, you know, these guys that you don't hear of. They're not household names because, number one, they're in Colorado, but the fact that you just don't, you know, who?
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's my number 3 star, and definitely deserving of some recognition this week. 4 goals in 3 games and 6 points, a +5. It was just a great week for him, and on a team where he's not kind of the main focal point.
Yeah, he's not, you know, yeah.
That was good to see. Number 2, I have Carter Verhagee from the Florida Panthers. 4 games played, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points, +6 rating, 1 game-winning goal. he is having a monster season. This was a guy who was buried on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Barely got into the lineup. When he did, it was in a fourth line role. He never really got to showcase the player that he was in Tampa Bay because, well, that lineup is stacked already. So he leaves in free agency. He goes to the Florida Panthers, and now we are seeing the kind of player that Carter Verhagee is. He's having a huge year for Florida. One of the main reasons offensively that the Panthers have been as good as they have been. And this week, he finally gets on the 3 stars list. I mean, 8 points in 4 games. That's 2 points a game. Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. +6, and he is just lighting it up for the Florida Panthers this year. So huge shout out to Verhagee in the season that he is having. My number 1 star is Matthew Barzal from the New York Islanders. 3 games played, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points, a +4. Hat trick in the last game against Washington. I mean, 8 points in 3 games. He had a huge. I think he had 5 points. I think in the game against the Capitals last night.
Yeah.
So obviously, a lot of those points came in that one game. But I mean, what a week! What a game and what a week for Matthew Barzal, and what a huge win for the Islanders. Barzal was, the driving force, the leader to get them there.
Yeah. And
they are now right there fighting for that top spot with the Capitals, and they just got a huge win over the Capitals, which would be a nice confidence boost for them. So Matt Barzal is my number 1 star this week. He has just been phenomenal for the Islanders. Carter Verhagee's number 2, and Jonas Donskoi is number 3.
Wow, that seemed like a very similar list.
Yeah, yep, very much.
Right,
so.
We just had one player we
switched the order. Yep.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah. So there's 3 stars, everybody, and now it's time to move on to our next segment where we look at the hottest and coldest teams in the NHL. These are teams that are playing really, really well right now, and then teams that are not. So I'm looking at our hottest teams list here and seeing that they are exactly the same, so we might as well do this together. Number 3 hottest team right now.
Before we start, I just want to let everybody know we each send each other notes at different times during the day.
Yeah, usually in the morning, Friday mornings, we send each other stuff back and forth. Like we create these lists before we know what the other person has created.
So that's what I wanted to point out.
So these are just, no question about it, undeniably the 3 hottest teams in the NHL right now. There are right and wrong answers. These are the right answers. They have to be, because we both have the exact same list.
Exactly.
Number 3, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have the longest current active winning streak in the NHL at 5 in a row. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, and they are climbing quickly in the East now, tied with 50 points with the Islanders and the Capitals, and they are right there for first place.
Exactly.
Who saw that coming at the beginning of the year? This Pittsburgh team just never dies, and they're having another phenomenal season this year.
Wow.
So they are number 3 on both of our lists.
Exactly. Here's some food for thought for you. Yari and DeSmith, the best goalie tandem in March.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were not the best goalie tandem to start the season, to say the least. January was tough.
That's putting it lightly.
No, they've gotten so much better as the year's gone along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's been more of their defense, though, too. But Yari has been playing better, and DeSmith has been playing better. I agree. They did put Malkin on the IR, and I know for a fact that Kapanen has missed some time as well,
he's
too.
Out as well.
Yeah.
They're still rolling.
And they're still rolling, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And exactly, and putting up a 5-win streak going 7-2-1.
Yeah.
This team is just picking up right where they need to, right when they need to.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So number 2, do you want to introduce our number 2 team here?
We'll go with number 2, and this is a surprise team that we weren't necessarily.
I never thought this was going to happen.
Like what? Oh wait. Did I have to sort this again? Hold on.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, so we're talking about the Nashville Predators here. They are 8-2-0 in their last 10 games. Now they did just lose the one the other night here against Dallas, but
that ended a 6-game win streak. Yeah.
Which exactly 6 games in a row. That was the longest streak at the time until they lost. And
they
then
lost. Yep.
Right. And so that's why I have them in here as still the hottest team, because 8-2-0, that's one of the best records in the last 10 games. And Nashville has just been playing and doing what they need to be doing, even though they're missing Forsberg and they've been missing some other players, but their goaltending has been stepping up and their offense has been stepping up.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Nashville is one of just 2 teams with 8 wins in their last 10 games. They had a 6-game win streak that just got ended, but still they ripped off 6 in a row. They've climbed the standings. They've moved into 4th place in the Central. They're in a playoff spot. And this was a team that was actually below the Detroit Red Wings in the standings earlier this season. The Predators looked down and out at the beginning of the year, and they have scratched and clawed their way back into things here, and now they are in legitimate playoff contention. I think they deserve a ton of credit for that, because if you had told me a month ago that we'd be talking about Nashville being in a playoff spot and being on the hottest teams list, I would have bet you a lot of money that you were wrong. And
2 weeks ago,
I would have lost that money, because Nashville is doing it, and they are pulling it off. And they are number 2 on the list for sure. They've had a great stretch here in the Central.
You know what's really kind of funny is that you don't even have to go back as far as a month. You could just go back 3 weeks.
Yep.
And say, yeah, Nashville, yeah, whatever. They're going to be the biggest sellers. They're going to be, all these guys are going to be up on the block and blah, blah, blah. And,
well, maybe not.
You might want to pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, it might have been a little early with that.
Yeah, It might have been a skosh early on that. All right. That brings us to, ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 hottest team in the league is, guess who? The Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
Holy moly. Look,
ripping.
I don't even know what to say.
They have 0 regulation losses in their last 10 games. That's good enough for me.
Right?
They've won 8 out of 10. They've won 8 out of 10, and their 2 losses came in overtime, and they still got a point out of those games. So they've had 8 wins out of 10. They have 0 regulation losses. They've won 2 in a row. Colorado is just absolutely on fire right now, and this is the team that I was expecting at the beginning of the year. This is the team that I chose to win the President's Trophy, to be my Stanley Cup pick for this season. This dominating Colorado team that they clearly had the roster and the talent to be. They didn't get off to that great of a start, but now they've gotten healthy, and they're getting into form and looking like the team that I thought they were going to be, and they might be doing it at the perfect time, getting ready and gearing up for a playoff run.
Last year, I had Colorado and Dallas as my sleeper teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really matter, because no matter what happened, I was going to be a winner, because Dallas made it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my sleeper teams made it. I don't think you can count Colorado as a sleeper team this year. I would have to say
they're a full-on favorite.
Yeah. I would even have to go out there on a limb and say I don't think they're going to necessarily win the President's Trophy. Okay? But I really think that outside of Tampa Bay, I think these guys I think Colorado is. I would have to go with my early favorite for Cup would be Colorado.
Yeah. They're right up there with the best in the league. Them and Tampa Bay, I think, are going to go right down to the wire for best team this year. And then come playoff time, who knows what's going to happen? That's a whole new ball game. But I picked Colorado to win the Cup before the year even started, and I was a little disappointed with the first month to 6 weeks of their season. But this past month,
then the COVID hit them, and they missed a bunch of games. And
this past month, they've just been unreal. They look like the Colorado team that I thought we were going to see this year.
Exactly, and the moves they made in the offseason to bring in
Devon Taves.
Exactly. And those types of depth scoring. Exactly. To bring in that depth scoring and then to shore up their goaltending as well, too. And Grubauer's just been playing out of his freaking skull.
He's a Vezina candidate this year. Which is nuts, because I've never been a huge Grubauer fan, but he's never played like this on a consistent basis before.
Right. So when you get that all those wheels going in motion there like that, then yeah, Colorado, I would have to say, would be my odds-on favorite right now. I would go with Colorado to be the Cup winners right now.
All right, so they are the hottest team in the league right now, 8-0-2 in their last 10 and on a 2-game win streak. That brings us now to the other side of things, the coldest teams in the league, and once again, we have the same list, so we can go through this together. Coming in at number 3, the Chicago Blackhawks at 3-7-0. They lost their last game to Carolina after beating Carolina the game before.
Yeah.
Still just 3 wins in their last 10 games, and this is why the Nashville Predators are in a playoff spot right now, is because Chicago they had a decent cushion for that 4th spot, and they have blown it, and they have lost a lot of games recently. And not playing at the same level that they were to start the year, that's for sure.
And there's really you can't say, oh, well, there's a lot of injuries or, you know what I mean?
No, they actually got Kirby Dach back from
That's
injury,
what I mean.
And they've gotten worse since he's come back, kind of, which is really weird.
Yeah, which is really interesting that we're talking about Nashville as being one of the hottest teams, and then we're talking about Chicago as being one of the coldest teams.
Would have thought it would be flip-flop.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk, that Nashville would be even considered in that particular situation, and now they're in 4th place, which also goes to show you the power of, winning 5, 6 games
in a row.
Or just winning 5 to 6 games out of 8.
Is huge. Yeah.
It is.
Runs like that are absolutely huge, particularly with the standings as close as they are in this shortened season. Absolutely massive for sure.
Exactly. So it's kind of funny that we both have Chicago at number 3. Surprisingly, Chicago at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I'll do the number 2nd one, or the number 2 coldest team, and it has a very similar record to Chicago over the last 10 games, and we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks here.
Yep.
And unfortunately for Anaheim, it's not going to be this year. They have lost 7 out of their last 10. They are 3-7-0 with losing the last game that they just played. They've won 11 games. They've played 37.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
It's a rebuild. It's a rebuilding
there you go.
team.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding team with a lot of young players, and they're not there yet.
Oh boy, do they have some talent coming up too. Oh my gosh.
They've got some really good young players. Absolutely. It's not all together yet, but over the next couple years as they get it together, look out for the Ducks. 3 years from now, look out for the Anaheim
Yeah, I was
Ducks.
just going to say 2 or 3 years from now, man, they're going to probably be, we're not going to be looking at them down there in 30th.
No, definitely not.
We won't be calling them one of the coldest teams in the league, I suspect.
Most likely not. Not 3 years from now, definitely. They've got some good young talent. They're number 2 on my list as well, 3-7-0. It's just they're not there yet. I don't want to rag on them because it's not really the expectations weren't there either. We knew that this is where Anaheim was at right now. It's not like they were expected to be a playoff team and they're just playing really badly. That's not the case at all. This is what we expected. We knew this was a rebuild year. They've got some young talent in there. They just got to get it developed and get it all working together, and they're still a couple years away from that. But
exactly.
Anaheim's number 2 on the list, and that brings us to number 1, who is another team that I really don't want to rag on because it's the Buffalo Sabres, and they finally won a game. So I want to celebrate the Sabres on this episode because they are still the coldest team in the league. They are 1-7-2 in their last 10 games. They lost their last game in overtime, but they have a 1 in the win column, which they did not last week. So the fact that they have a 1 in the win column makes me really happy for Buffalo.
With all of the injuries that they have and with all of the issues that's going up there in Buffalo with the coach being relieved up there as well, with Eichel missing pretty much most of the season. Ownership being a disaster. The list goes on and on here.
Yeah.
And then what's kind of funny, though, is that if you look at Buffalo, Like if you just kind of close your eyes and look at Buffalo and go, oh, individually, this is a good player. Individually, this is a good player.
Yeah.
Individually, this is a good player.
They're not a good team.
But right, not a good team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think is also going on in Philadelphia too.
Yeah, Philly
Yeah.
should be a lot better than what they are. I
If
feel
you
like the
close your
Sabres should be better than what they are.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
close your eyes and look at Philadelphia, you go, oh, Drew's a pretty good player. Voracek
Voracek,
is a pretty good player.
Couturier,
Couture's pretty good.
Konechny,
Yeah, you know, and you look at them and go, individually, they're pretty good players. And then you put them on
JVR,
the team, and you're like,
Farabee, Lawton, Provorov. Like
wait a minute.
it's a
Yeah,
good, talented team.
exactly.
It's not a good team. It's a good collection of. It's a collection
Talent.
of good players and talented players.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's
Collection
not
of
a good
players.
team that fits together.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
So yeah, those are the coldest teams. Chicago, Anaheim, and Buffalo.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring us to our second commercial break before we
Wow.
go into game picks when we come back, which is always fun to do. Very embarrassing last week, but we'll come back stronger this week and probably get a whole bunch more wrong again. But before we do game picks, before we do game picks, here is a word from our sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts. A huge thank you to them again for their support of everything at Steel Flyers, and we will let you hear all about them.
Greetings. This is Steel Flyers from the Steel Flyers All Sports Network, and we have two very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of two locations both in Mannheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. Steel Flyer stands behind this company 100%. Taken care of Steel Flyer's furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. Both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The Steel Flyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. A full-service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God.
And we are back, everybody, and it is time now for our game pick segment for tomorrow's game, Saturday. Last week did not go well. Actually, like, all-time bad, really, really bad. But I will say this. I think, with the exception of the Bruins beating the Sabres, I think underdogs won every single other game in the NHL last week.
With the, I'm trying to look here. I don't know if you consider Carolina an underdog to Tampa Bay, maybe.
No, they were. Yeah, Tampa was the favorite.
All right. So I guess you consider Edmonton an underdog to Toronto.
Yeah, Edmonton was the underdog. I'm just going based on who,
All right.
odds-wise, who was the favorite and who was the underdog.
Yeah.
The underdog won every single matchup except for the Bruins-Sabres game last Saturday. So that's why our records were so bad.
Well, you actually, John, picked that game.
Buffalo, yeah, the Bruins one was the only one I got right.
That was the only one. Yep. So you were 1-10, and I didn't do that much better. I picked that game as well. I also picked a Detroit win over Columbus Blue Jackets, and then I picked Arizona over San Jose. So I was 3-8. So that's
bad
really
records.
all-time bad.
Yeah, those were really bad records last week.
Man, whatever you guys do, don't look to us for picking games on Saturday because we
absolutely
just do it for fun.
Saturday's the worst day too. Saturday
Yes.
is the worst day to try and pick for whatever reason. Weird things happen on Saturday. So
During the week, man, I can nail them. I mean, I even get the scores.
yeah, my picks of the week record this year is
Yeah.
pretty good, but
It
Saturdays are not.
So we're gonna just do it for fun, and why not, right?
Yeah,
So
we got a whole bunch of games to go through here.
exactly. So you're on the season. You are 51-49, so you're still above 500. You're
Wow,
still
I
doing...
cannot believe I stayed above 500 even after how
Yes,
last week
that's
went.
sad, right? That's sad that you've picked that many good games. You have one horrible week, and still
I'm still above
way over 500. All right. I, however, am getting a little better. 45-55. So I still have that 10-game differential
You're still
there.
10 games under, but maybe this week you'll go like 10-0 or something, or however many games there are.
Yeah, maybe.
What's there, 11 again this week?
Yeah,
2, 4,
you know
6,
what?
8,
And
10,
maybe
there is.
I have some beachfront property for you in Arizona.
Is it on the Rio
I
Grande?
don't have beachfront property in Arizona.
Yeah,
All right.
no.
First game. These are all games that are happening on this coming week.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Right. So they're all happening on the 3rd.
These are all
of
tomorrow's
April.
games. 11 games on the docket for tomorrow.
Right. And we're going to start off with the best one, I guess, maybe Pittsburgh versus Boston.
Pittsburgh.
You think?
Yeah, they're playing really well. The Bruins are just... I don't even want to get into it with the Bruins right now. Listen to my Bruins show, if Black and Gold Weekly, if you want to hear me go delve in on Boston right now. But, Pittsburgh, please.
Okay. I'm going to have to go with you on that one, Pittsburgh. In spite of the injuries, in spite of Jari going down that one game there and having an upper body injury or whatever, even still, I think Pittsburgh just seems to be hitting the stride, and Boston seems to be stumbling a little bit, especially after coming back from their COVID a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're kind of dealing with some injuries as well too. So Boston maybe, I still, it doesn't really matter because I think that Boston's still going to make it.
Okay.
I still think Boston's going to make the playoffs because I think the teams below them aren't going to sniff.
I'm worried about the Rangers at this point, and that's about it.
Well, if they pass the Flyers, then I'd be worried about them. But until they pass the Flyers,
Yeah, I have much more faith in the Rangers coming up for that 4th spot than Philly. I think Philly's done.
Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely feel the same way as well. Yeah. All right. Next game is Detroit versus Tampa Bay.
Tampa, that's easy.
Yeah, that's easy.
Till Detroit
Although
wins
Detroit has been
3-2.
playing better.
No, Detroit's been winning games. Yeah, no, they have been
Yeah.
playing better.
Can't go wrong with that, though.
Still,
All right.
Tampa's the best team in the
Right.
league.
You know, gosh, even if they send out the third stringers, I think they still could be okay. You know, all right. Chicago versus Nashville.
Nashville. The Preds are the hot team and Chicago's the cold team. So I'm gonna take the Predators in that one. I think they should be able to get back on track against Chicago. That's a huge game.
Well, too. Hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the league. Yeah,
that's a huge game.
It is.
Like, I didn't even realize. Like, that's a massive game between the Predators.
That's pretty much of a coin flip.
Yeah, and that's for 4th place. Whoever wins that game is in 4th.
Yeah, that's a good one, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so the next one is the Rangers and the Sabres.
Rangers. I'm glad Buffalo won a game, but I think the Rangers are playing pretty well right now. I'm taking New York.
Yeah, I agree too. Since Panarin's been back, Zibanejad has been on the stars of the week.
Yep.
And Panarin's been playing well, and Kreider's been playing well, and
yep.
New York has actually been putting together some wins too. So yeah, okay. All right. Philadelphia versus New York Islanders.
Islanders. Really good team. Philly in shambles right now, so Isles.
Yep, going with Isles on that. I actually have them. I actually have the Islanders. I picked the Islanders to win this division, and depending on how their last 20 games go, they might actually still be able to do it depending
Possibly,
on how things go.
They're definitely in it.
Yeah. All right. The next game is Dallas versus Carolina.
Carolina. They're just the better team. More consistent this year, too. Dallas has been really inconsistent.
Yeah, they look really good, and then they don't look really good, and then they look really good, and yeah. I have to go with Carolina as well on this one, just because I believe Carolina, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league, and Dallas is still trying to fight to get back to where they were, and I don't think it's going to happen with Carolina. All right, Columbus Blue Jackets versus Florida Panthers.
Florida. I mean, Florida's right up there with Tampa Bay, fighting for that top spot. So.
Yeah, this is getting scary, dude. We have not disagreed on any single one of these.
Oh.
And we're more than halfway through, and we're both picking the same teams.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's that curveball? How about a curveball for you? Ottawa versus Montreal.
Montreal, I think's won 3 or 4 in a row now. They've been playing.
Yeah,
they're at 4 now. Yeah, they've been playing a lot better. They know that they need to play better because they need to secure that 4th playoff spot. They've got games in hand on the teams behind them in Calgary and Vancouver. So that's a big game for the Canadiens to make sure that they get the 2 points out of. So I like them there.
Yeah, I definitely like the Canadiens as well on this too. Carey Price looked good in his last game that he played.
Yep.
So that's good for them. I think Montreal playing and looking better and playing better in their last, winning the last 4 games. So I'm going with Montreal as well too.
Yep.
Here is another coin flip. This is going to be a tough game to call, and it's a great matchup. Yeah. Minnesota versus Vegas.
Minnesota. They've played Vegas really well this year.
Yeah. But this is where I'm going to go off the rails here, and I'm going to take Vegas on this one.
Finally, a difference.
Yeah, right? I just, when these two teams collide, you know what I mean? It's coin flip for me.
Yeah, I don't have the season series records off the top of my head, but I know
I don't
Minnesota,
either.
I think, has won at least 3 games against Vegas already this year.
Yes. And depending on who's going to be in goal.
That's the other thing is we don't know who the starting goalies are going to be. But
right.
That plays a big role in it as well.
Agreed. And so that's why That's why I'm going with Vegas, because I like Vegas's goaltending either way better than I like Minnesota's goaltending.
Right. Well, I'm going to take the Wild in that one, and
Okay.
we'll see how
All right.
that one turns out. That is going to be a heck of a hockey game.
It is. That might be. Oh yeah, that might be a game to watch. All right. St. Louis versus Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah, I got to go with Colorado on this one too, without even a question, man. St. Louis is on the opposite direction.
Yeah, St. Louis has really been struggling, and Colorado, hottest team in the league, one of the best teams in the league, no question to me. Avs.
Yep. All right, man. San Jose versus the LA Kings.
I'm gonna go San Jose here.
Mm.
LA has not been convincing recently, and the Sharks have been playing a little bit better. Sharks are weird. They have games where they look really good, and then they just look like absolute garbage in the game after, but then there'll be another game where they just look really good all of a sudden. And they're a weird team this year, but I just, something about the Kings, like, they're very inconsistent, and something seems a little off right now with LA. So I'm going to take the little bit of an off the rails pick there and take the Sharks.
Because I'm going with the Kings all the way.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm taking the Kings on this one, man. Every time I pick San Jose, no.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
No. So
that's me picking
week
Columbus.
I picked Arizona against San Jose. Guess what? Arizona won. Right? San Jose's playing LA Kings. I'm picking LA Kings.
That's literally me with Columbus. Every time I pick Columbus, they lose. Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
So
last game. Vancouver versus Edmonton.
Oh, that one's not happening. Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Postpone.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, I took that one off the list because that one will not be played. So that's it. Those are our 11 games
for
tomorrow, and those are our game picks for them.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck as well. Yeah, we're going to need it. Both of us desperately.
Me more so, but yeah.
Well, I'm the one that went 1-10 last week. So
yeah, but you're overall though you're 51-49, and I'm 45 for 55.
Hopefully, I can make that a little bit better this week.
Yeah.
That's gonna bring us into our next segment, and we are changing this up a little bit just to shorten it a little because our shows have been going pretty significantly over the 2-hour mark. This one's definitely going to go over, but hopefully by not as much. Right. Rather than doing 5 games of the week and talking, about really 10 different matchups, we've cut this down to just one best game of the week or matchup, because these teams basically now you're playing teams twice in a row or sometimes 3 times, but just best matchup of the week this coming week in the NHL. And we're just going to pick number one, top one that is going to be must-watch hockey. Steele, what is your best game or matchup of the week this week?
Okay, so I'm going with the little mini series here now that they just finished up against Nashville, and I want to see what's going to happen with the next series that they're going to be playing, and that's Dallas Stars versus Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
These are must-win games for Dallas.
Yep.
If they want to even do anything, be anywhere, or have any kind of a chance. Okay?
Yeah.
They have a lot of games in hand. Exactly. They have a lot of games in hand. They're going to play a back-to-back. They're going to play tomorrow, and then they're going to play Sunday.
Yep.
So, for me, that's going to be my games of the week. Look, this is so difficult to try and select a set of teams or games. Even when we were doing the 5.
Yeah.
It was so tough to pick because there's so many on any given night. There's a 5-star matchup on any given night.
Yeah, there's so many great ones. You just kind of have to pick one and realize that there are other great matchups out there as well. But
exactly, you're going to miss out on some, right?
Pick one, and you're going to miss out on some. But there are great games every night in the NHL.
Exactly. Either way, we're still going to guide you to some good hockey. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. So who is what is your games or set of games for the week?
The Colorado Avalanche against the Minnesota Wild on the 5th and the 7th. So what is that? Is that Monday and Wednesday? Yeah, I think that's Monday and Wednesday. The Avalanche and the Wild, 2 of the top teams in the West. just a tremendous matchup between two great teams,
Yeah.
having great seasons this year. Both teams are good in kind of all areas. Like, they're good offensively, they're good defensively. They getting really solid goaltending this year. So, I mean, this is just a marquee matchup, in my opinion, between Colorado and Minnesota. And obviously, there's huge points on the line as well, as they're fighting for seeding in the West playoffs. So, it's going to be a massive matchup. I cannot wait to see how it turns out, and I have a feeling it's going to be some awesome hockey between these two teams, because they're both just such great teams and fun to watch. So Colorado and Minnesota is my best matchup of the week. That is Monday and Wednesday this coming week.
You know, what's funny is that I was looking at this and I was going, man, I really like this matchup because of that very reason, because they are fighting for that position. And Colorado has just been blowing it up, but Minnesota has been like slowly kind of clawing its way, you know, and getting there closer and closer and closer.
They've
You
been
know what
in
I
third
mean?
for a while, and they're just like,
That's what I mean.
holding on right there with with Vegas and Colorado at the top.
I mean, you know, it's been really amazing for Minnesota. That was a great story for Minnesota this year, playing really well and potentially making it into the playoffs. So this was tough, man. I had a hard time picking between some of the games, and this was one of the games that I had a hard time picking. So.
Definitely. So those are our best games of the week, or best matchups of the week for this coming week. And that brings us now to our final segment. This is always a fun one because we get to talk about the future of the NHL and some players that are not quite there yet, but are definitely going to be impact players in the near future. It's prospect watch time. This is always a good time. And we got a couple great ones to talk about again. Today, both centers. Coincidentally. And two 20-year-old players drafted in the first round of 2019. So
one was selected 16th, and the next one was selected 17th.
They literally drafted right next to each other in the 2019 draft. So Steele, if you want to go first, you can talk about your player.
Okay, so my prospect watch for this week was Alex. Sorry. Actually, it was true. I actually selected the same player that you did.
Yeah, we selected the same player. So
right.
Steele changed his to literally the kid that was drafted one pick later.
Right. So I did that on purpose so that we could talk about this. But my prospect watch for this week is Peyton Krebs.
Yep.
He is a 20-year-old lefty center. He's 5'11", 180 pounds. He was picked by the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round, 17th overall in the 2019 NHL draft. I'm sorry, NHL draft. Whoops. He
plays
hockey for the Vegas Golden
the Las Vegas Raiders.
Wait. Oh, what? Yeah, no. NHL.
He plays hockey.
2019 NHL draft.
Yep.
He played for the WHL Winnipeg Ice.
Yep.
5 games played. He had 1 goal, 4 assists, and 5 points. I believe, is transitioning either into the AHL affiliate, or he's either I don't know what. That it said on the prospects that he's no longer with the AHL team.
Oh, all right. So this junior hockey is just starting up again in Canada. So a lot of these kids started in the AHL.
Okay.
When the AHL was playing, but then when juniors came back, they had to go back to their junior teams. So he went back to the WHL.
Okay.
And that season's just starting, so he's played 5 games. He's got 5 points.
Games, and has 5 points already. Yeah, so I mean, the kid's got some speed. He's a little bit thick too. He's 5'11", but he's 180 pounds.
Yeah, and if he can keep putting some more weight on, that will help him with the physical side of things. Because that was one thing about Krebs that people were talking about when he was drafted, was that he was a little on the smaller side. Obviously, in today's NHL, that's not a big deal like it was 20 years ago.
Exactly.
But they do, he's a guy that does need to get stronger. And I think we see what Jack Hughes has done in the building of his strength and how much better of a player that's made him. I think you're going to see a similar thing with Peyton Krebs.
Yeah. That one off season where he puts that 15 pounds on and, exactly.
Builds that muscle, and all of a sudden you can't stop him the way that you could the year before.
Exactly. So that's who my prospect watch is for this week.
Yes, mine is the player selected one spot before Peyton Krebs. It's Alex Newhook, who just finished up at Boston College and has since signed his ELC with the Colorado Avalanche. He is a 20-year-old center. He was drafted 16th overall in 2019 by the Avs. This season at Boston College, he did miss some time with injury, unfortunately, but he played in 12 games. He had 7 goals, 9 assists for 16 points in those 12 games and was a -1 on the season. He is now obviously just signed his entry-level contract, and he will be joining the Colorado Eagles in the AHL to get some AHL time and start his pro career. Obviously that, Colorado is a loaded team. He's not going to be up with the big club right away. He's going to do some time in the AHL first as he gets himself ready to play professional hockey. But we talk about the Avalanche and all the great players that they have, and they have some really good young prospects as well. And Alex Newhook is one of them. And, they're just going to keep infusing more and more talent into that lineup as time goes on. And when Newhook's NHL ready, I think he's going to be an impact player. This kid's got a lot of offensive ability, a lot of offensive skill. Obviously, he's had 16 points in 12 games in college this year. He does need to learn the defensive side of things a little bit better. I think that's probably his biggest weakness right now. The skating is there, the hands are there, the offensive creativity, and all the offensive stuff and the natural tools are there. He's just got to develop the defensive side of the game to get to an NHL level. Yeah. Once he does that, this kid is going to be really, really good. So Avalanche fans have a lot to look forward to with Alex Newhook. This kid had a great year at Boston College this year.
Exactly. He also he showed very well, too, for the World Juniors for Canada, playing up there and getting, I believe he was 3 goals in 6 games.
Yeah. Yeah,
something
I think he
like
had
that.
6 points in 6 games, and 3 of them were goals. So
exactly. So
yeah, this kid's got talent. He's got a lot of offensive ability. As he continues that development path, he could become a really, really good piece for the Avalanche in the future.
Exactly.
All right, so that's our prospect watch for this week, and that is going to finish up the show here. So. That brings us to the end of episode 14, Steele. It was awesome, as always. Yes. Great to have you on, and really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
This was another awesome time, and we had another week of NHL action to talk about.
Oh, man. It's like I look forward to this every single week, man. I really do.
Yeah. I'm glad that it's always fun, and it's a great time, a great Friday night show to kind of end out the week and have a great time talking hockey, and it's always an awesome time.
I agree, man. I agree. Couldn't happen to a better group of analysts. What do you think?
Definitely, 100%. But that brings us to the end of episode 14 here, guys. Again, one last thank you to Canine Country Club Resorts. Shout out to our show sponsor and site sponsor at steelflyers.com. You'll definitely want to check them out. You saw their commercial throughout the show. They do provide some awesome services for your pet. So big thank you to CCC Resorts. Big thank you to each and every one of you who tune in and watch or listen every week. Obviously,
thank you very much.
Wouldn't really happen without you. So
exactly.
Thank you guys all so much for watching. For those of you that can't catch it live and come back and watch it at a later time, that's absolutely awesome as well, and we really, really appreciate that. And
also be checking us out on Spreaker, because then we also released the show out on Spreaker, so you can catch it on all of your podcasting platforms as well. iHeartRadio,
Spotify, Apple
Spotify,
Podcasts,
Apple, Google,
Podcasts, all the Spotify platforms, pretty much. We're on that as well, so you can. If you can't catch the show on YouTube and you just want to listen to it in the car or something, all those podcast platforms have the show on there, all the big ones, Spotify, Google, Apple, all of it. So there's plenty of ways for you to check out the show for sure, and we really, really appreciate each and every one of you who do listen and watch, and especially those who come in each and every week and are here every time and watch every show.
Thank you all very much.
Really, really means a lot to us, and that's the reason we're able to do this. So With that, guys, thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. I will be back. We'll be back next week. We'll have episode 15 going, and we'll have another great week of NHL hockey to talk about. But with that, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much, and talk to you all very, very soon.